got it? Okay. Okay, so everybody can make the acknowledgement on the recording. Welcome, everyone. This is the first October seminar, and first and last, since this is the last week of October, that SWAPLA, the Southwest Association of Pre-Law Advisors, is hosting. We have an excellent panel here today that are going to be talking about applying to out-of-state law schools. And we have admissions representatives from a lot of different areas. And I think this is going to be very good for our students who've been thinking, do I want to stay in the state I'm in? Do I want to go somewhere else? Just to pitch for SWAPLA, we're the Southwest Association of Pre-Law Advisors. And I am the treasurer, Barbara Kirby. Our vice president, Ana Alvarez, is monitoring our chat for us today, and our fantastic, we'll call her our tech guru, Wendy Watson, until she heads out to teach about the Second Amendment, is here with us. And our president, Michelle Payne, is also on the call with us today. So support your local pre-law advisor. I definitely recommend that in addition to watching excellent webinars like this, that you talk to your pre-law advisor about your law school plans. So I always love to run the long resumes of our different guests, but I have learned that it's better to let them have the time to talk about their schools rather than to give a long introduction. So I'm just going to introduce the 6 members of our panel that we have today. First is Kimberly Gardner, the Director of Admissions and Financial Aid at Boston College Law School. Next, we have Catherine Espiritu, the Director of Admissions at Fordham University School of Law. Next, we have Amy Best, the Director of Admissions at the University of Iowa College of Law. Next, we have from the University of California, Irvine School of Law, Peter Iraka. Then we have from Washburn University School of Law in Kansas, Priscilla Samarepa. And she is the Assistant Director of Admissions at Washburn. And then finally, my friend Kamal Pennington, the Director of Admissions at the University of Oklahoma College of Law. So welcome to all of you. The first thing that we're going to do is give each of you the time to talk about your particular law school, and especially in terms of what kinds of things that you have that make your particular law school a good fit and a special one for students who are coming in from out of state. So let's start with Kimberly Gardner from Boston College.
Great. Thank you so much, Barbara. Wonderful to be here. Wonderful to be here with my colleagues that I know and those that I am just meeting. I am the Director of Admissions at Boston College Law School, and we are located in Newton, Mass. So we are not in Boston, but originally when we opened our doors almost 100 years ago, we were in downtown Boston. We are a private law school, and let's see, this year's class size, it was a little bit larger. It was 353 students. We have a diverse population at the law school, our largest ever, with 32% self-identifying as being diverse, 15% LGBTQIA, and 35% are self-identified as first-gen students. We are a Catholic Jesuit school. So what does that mean? So the Jesuits were founded on excellence in education, educating the whole person, service to others, and with an emphasis on giving back. So that does make us a bit unique. I'm with my colleague Katz from Fordham, which is another Jesuit school. One of the things that does make us unique in that we do draw from over 150 different colleges and universities across the country and globally. So when we, in normal times, when we do recruit far and wide, and students do come. And we are in a city, which is the capital, Boston, meaning that we have access to the city whereby students can participate in externships, internships, summer jobs, and full-time employment. And Boston is a very robust city. We have a very high employment rate 10 months out from graduation. So Boston has grown over the years. It is becoming more diverse, and also the industries have blossomed. We've got high tech. We've always had excellent hospitals. So the healthcare law, which is very popular now, IP law, and certainly law firm work, government agencies, and all the court systems being the capital. So with that, I think I'll stop and hand it over to whomever else you want to go next, Barbara.
I think next we're going to go with Katz from Fordham University School of Law. Since you already kind of introduced her, let's go on with that.
Great. Well, thank you, Kim, and thank you, Barbara. Thank you so much to everyone for being here today. My name is Katz. I'm the Director of Admissions at Fordham Law School. We are located in New York City in Midtown Manhattan. And so for a point of reference for some of you that might not be as familiar with New York City, we are across from Lincoln Center. We are 2 blocks from the southwest entrance of Central Park and 20 blocks from Times Square. New York is one of the largest legal markets in the country. So being right in Manhattan, you will have a lot of access to many national firms, large nonprofits, and the court systems. We are one of the top 10 in size. This year, we brought in an entering class of 450 students. And then we also have a robust LLM population. So our total student population is usually about 1,400. We have 2 programs. We have a traditional full-time program, and then we also have one of the oldest part-time evening programs in the country. It's a 4-year program. We offer a JD MBA, a JD MSW, and a JD Masters in International Political and Economic Development. We take advantage of our large size, so you have a lot of options and opportunities. We offer almost 300 electives, 6 journals, 18 centers, 18 clinics. We have a large number of student organizations. And again, we really encourage you to use New York City as an extension of our campus. At least 250 students participate in externships every year. Like my friend Kim at BC, Fordham is also a Jesuit institution, so we have a strong focus in the service of others, and we are one of 3 law schools to ever win the ABA Pro Bono Award. We have a vibrant and engaged alumni community, and there are Fordham Rams in all 50 states and in 93 countries across the globe. I'll drop information in the chat later on, but I look forward to our conversation today, and I will pass it back to Barbara.
Thank you. I think it's really great. We've gone Boston, New York. I think it's time for us to talk to Amy Betts, the Director of Admissions at the University of Iowa. So let's just move to the Midwest now.
Thanks so much, Barbara. And it's great to be here with some of my colleagues who I know really well, and all of you. Thanks so much for having us. I am Amy Best, again, from the University of Iowa. We are located in Iowa City, Iowa. You can take I-35 north and you will get to Des Moines, which is the capital of the state of Iowa, and we're about an hour and a half due east of Des Moines. We are located in a vibrant college town, And Texas is usually one of the top 5 represented states in our entering class. About 2/3 of our students are non-residents, and they come from a wide variety of backgrounds, bringing a lot of different experiences, and we do have a really diverse class. Our class size is typically about 150 to 160 students, and we are a public law school with a commitment to service and professionalism. One really popular opportunity is that those non-residents have at our program is that you can work as a research assistant in your second and third years and qualify for the resident tuition rate, which is a really nice tuition benefit. We have a really strong community at the law school. It's a place where you can really collaborate closely and work on a team with your peers with strong discourse and connections. Students get to know faculty really well, both inside and outside of the classroom. We have been recognized for our research and writing program. We have one of the largest academic law libraries in the country, so it's a really great place to do research, and we're well known for our legal writing program. We offer many opportunities for you to really hone your legal writing skills during your time at Iowa Law. We have a really broad curriculum covering many different areas with opportunities to get experiential training, skills training, and build your foundational knowledge. Our location is really quite central within the middle of the country, and we have really strong connections to a lot of the surrounding geographic markets where many of our students are starting their careers, as well as farther flung locations. But the centrality of our location really helps our students connect with employers in a wide variety of markets. And typically close to 2/3, if not 70% or more of our students will start their careers outside the state of Iowa. Along the lines of that program that allows you to qualify for resident tuition, we have been recognized as a best value law school, which is something that we're really proud of. And again, I look forward to speaking with everyone here today, and I'll toss it back to Barbara.
Thank you very much. I think now we're going to go left coast and talk to Peter Araka from Cal Irvine. Peter?
Thanks, Barbara. Again, I'm Pete Araka. I'm the Director of Admissions at the University of California, Irvine School of Law, located in Orange County, California. Just about an hour and a half between LA and San Diego, respectively. And what I think is most important, we're 10 minutes to the beach, which is always nice. So UCI is the youngest of the 5 UC law schools. We opened our doors in 2009. And we still have the same core principles that founded us, that guide us to this day. First and foremost, it's our commitment to public service, which is broader than public interest. We believe all attorneys need to work in the public service, regardless of where they or what types of law they end up practicing. So we do our best to instill that in our students through primarily our pro bono legal services program, which students can begin doing work in the pro bono program beginning 1L with recommended 20 hours in the first year, and then 2L and 3L each 50 hours. Our students have collectively done, since our opening, 127,000 hours of pro bono legal work. And one of the things that was brought on by the pandemic, which is sticking around, is with Zoom, our students can do pro bono legal work across the country, not just in Southern California. So we see students doing pro bono work in the Southwest, Midwest, East Coast, all over the place. So it definitely still allows students to build a legal network even outside of California, if that's their interest. Secondly is our dedication to experiential education. All of our students must do a clinic. We have 11 core clinics and 7 elective clinics at UCI. So every student must do at least 1 semester of core clinical education, and then you can follow that up with additional semesters as an advanced clinical student or jumping over to one of the elective clinics. And then finally is our commitment to inclusive excellence. We are consistently listed as one of the top schools for diversity in the United States, with 55% of our current 1L class self-identifying as students of color, which is consistent over the last several years. Additionally, we have 28% of our class as members of the LGBTQIA community, 25% are first generation, and we're we're slightly skewed resident at UCI. As a young law school, we still draw a lot of our population from California, but we are definitely looking to expand our out-of-state population over the next several years. So I will kind of leave it there. Look forward to the rest of our conversation. And Barbara, I'll let you toss it to another panelist.
Thank you. I think we're going to toss it to Priscilla Samarepa from Washburn University School of Law in the great state of Kansas.
Great, thank you, Barbara. Thank you everyone for joining us today. So my name is Priscilla Samarepa. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions here at Washburn University School of Law in Topeka, Kansas. We are located in the capital city, so we are in a great location for students that are looking to pursue something in government and law. We're a smaller school. We currently have 331 students enrolled, and I'm really excited. I'm sure a lot of people are excited, but we actually have 51.7% female enrolled at our school, 48.6% male, with a 20.8 in diversity. We are, as I mentioned, a smaller school. We are also excited. We're getting a brand new building, $37 million brand new building that is being built right now. We should be moving into the new building come spring 2023. So we'll start having classes in our new building then. And we have 4 different dual degree programs. We have the Masters of Business, Accounting, Social Work, and Criminal Justice available to students. Something that I also would like to share is that we offer in-state tuition for Texas residents. There's no GPA requirement or anything. If you are a Texas resident and you decide to join us here at Washburn, we will give you in-state tuition automatically. And we also have a program that I would like to highlight is our Third Year Anywhere enrollment program. So essentially what it is your first 2 years of law school, you would be with us here in Kansas. And that third year of law school, you can go wherever you plan on practicing. So whether that's Texas, whether it's the East Coast, the West Coast, or overseas, that's something that we have a program in place to allow students to do that. And I look forward to the conversation and questions. And again, thank you all for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Priscilla. I just want to say, that Third Year Anywhere started before the pandemic. And so now it looks very forward thinking for students to be able to have that kind of connection to the school, but to be able to spend their third year anywhere. Very interesting.
Yes.
Okay. Last but not least, Kamal Pennington from the University of Oklahoma College of Law.
Hello, this is not Kamal Pennington, so I'm gonna correct a couple things. First, as I stated, I'm not Kamal. I'm Assistant Dean Stan Evans. The second thing I want to correct, Kamal Pennington is kind of a handsome guy. As you can tell by looking at me, I do not match that mold. So who I am is what you get. So you have to deal with that. The things that I want to talk about primarily focuses on you guys. When you're a Texan, and most of you guys are Texans because that's what SWAPLA is all about, looking at going out of state, there are a couple of issues that come to mind. I'm a Texan, so I understand this. Texans think that there is no place on earth that's better than Texas. Am I right? And because of that, our recruiting strategy, as we go into it, we understand that if you are interested in coming to a law school outside of Texas, there are several things you should be looking for. First, you should look at is placement at the college you pick going to be good enough to get you wherever you want to go to law school. Second, is the law school that you're going to, is it going to prepare you for practice law wherever you want to go to? And third, do they have alumni that can help and get you connected and also be mentors for you wherever you are? And I think that most of us fit that bill, but I just want to share with you from our standpoint, we really focus on that at the University of Oklahoma College of Law. We consider ourselves the 11th Law School of Texas. And the reason we do that is because about 32% of our students will come to the University of Oklahoma from Texas, and we will return about 35% of our graduates will return to Texas. That happens because, one, we have a strong reputation of having a very, very high bar passage rate in Texas. We also have a very, very high hire rate in the state of Texas. We're very connected in Texas. What we want to do is put you in a position where you can practice law wherever you want. And if that's Texas, then you can come to Oklahoma and go back to Texas. The neat thing about that is not only are we the least expensive school in the entire Big 12, we're also the least expensive school in all of Texas. So you gain a financial advantage as well by coming there. Now, what makes OU law different? The things that make us different to us, we look at 3 or 4 different things because everyone has certain things that stand out. First and foremost, our bar passage rate is consistently above 90%. Our placement rate is consistently above 90%. And that's even higher than that in Texas. Our retention rate is around 93 to 94%. And we think that that's pretty important to think about, because when you go to law school, you want to make sure that there's a support system built there to help you get through law school. Our goal is not just to get you to law school, but to get you graduated and out into the placement area. It's the other thing that I want to share with you as I'm talking about the University of Oklahoma. I think that it's important to understand that we're moving into a digital world. The University of Oklahoma College of Law is the #1 digital initiative school in the entire United States. We issue every one of our students electronic gear, such as a notebook or computer, the day you show up. In fact, we'll send it out to you before you even get here, and then we'll assume you better show up so we can make sure that we get you and the computer back. The second part of it has to do with the things we do. We teach our classes that way, but at the same time, it's to get you to understand that when you go into a law firm, we want you to be as smart or as knowledgeable in any law firm that you go into in the digital world. We're here and we look forward to your questions.
And Stan, I'm so sorry that I didn't know that Kamal wasn't here. You were kind of over on the non-viewing side of my screen. And we'll just give him a hard time for sure, just like you.
Please give him a hard time.
I promise. I'll try to talk to him directly about that. I'm happy to see you here today.
Okay.
So I think that one of the first concerns that my students have when they say, I would love, and you're talking about nobody wants to leave Texas, but I sure have a lot of students, and I'm sure in every state we see this, where we have people who've grown up in a particular area, gone to school there, and they just want to see someplace else. And so they'll talk to me about going to law school out of state. But of course, the first and foremost concern they have is about the cost of that. And so I'm going to ask each of you, first, I'm going to ask you about kind of like what percentage of students do you have who are from out of state? How does your tuition and your cost of attendance, can it be more attractive to students coming in from out of state? And then is there any other thing in particular about the affordability of making it more affordable and more attractive for students coming from out of state? So why don't we just go right back to Kimberly for that? We'll go in our same order.
Okay, thanks, Barbara. So I did mention when I spoke that BC is a private institution. So we have one size fits all for our tuition charges. So there is no preference to in-state or out of state. That being said, and what I do when I counsel students, because I used to be in financial aid many years ago, is that you need to apply where you want to, where you can see yourself go. You should have a reach, target, and safety strategy, but also it's hard to evaluate once when you don't know all the numbers. A private school may very well give you more dollars than, say, a state school. So if you get higher package of financial aid and merit scholarships, and a state school is bound by, perhaps a certain amount of money, you got to know what it is, and that's at the last bit of the process. So it is a process, but it's something that definitely to consider. And our scholarship is based on LSAT and GPA. So again, going back to what I just mentioned about strategy, is that maybe some of those schools that you've chosen, your safeties, might be something where you'd fit in, perhaps getting a full ride somewhere. So there's a lot of considerations. Even though a state school might be less expensive, you just really need to kind of be diligent and work the numbers.
Thanks a lot. Good response there. Kat,
Yes.
New York City, expensive place to live, but you're also a private school. Some
We
kind of
are.
considerations there?
Sure. And we do get a large number of students from, the South and Texas every year. We really do place nationally in our postgraduate employment, but we are a private institution. So we are also a one-size tuition fits all. I'm going to steal that from Kim, actually. And residency does not play any kind of it does not play a role in any of our decision factors. And so we are also very upfront that the cost of attendance at Fordham can be higher when you factor in that New York City has one of the most expensive housing markets in the country. But we are fortunate to be a school that offers both merit and need-based financial aid. I think we're one of 30 to 40 law schools in the country that still offer need-based aid. So for merit scholarships, it is based off of, a variety of academic credentials, but then your need-based component, it's something that you apply for after you've been admitted. So we don't see that at all as part of our admissions process. And you can qualify for both merit scholarships and need-based aid separately. So if our scholarship committee decides to give you a scholarship, you can still go through our Office of Financial Aid. We do require a FAFSA and a specific financial aid application for Fordham law students, and our Office of Financial Aid will package you accordingly. Our need-based grants are open to all students, regardless of status. And we will work with you and hope that you see New York as a good return on investment. And I will just pass it to, I think it was Amy, for you next.
Yes, that's right, Amy. And I like that return on investment. That's a very good point. Amy, so we're talking about state school now, University of Iowa. What percentage of your students come from outside of Iowa? And what does it take to get residency there?
Yes, so as a public law school, our tuition is based on your residency status within the state of Iowa. And the state of Iowa has made it very difficult to obtain residency if you are coming to the state and then immediately starting an educational program. So for your first year at Iowa Law, unless you've already been living in the state of Iowa, you will be charged or you have some prior ties to the state of Iowa that you could try to argue should qualify you for residency, which you can do. You will be paying non-resident tuition. Then we have a really well-established program that starting in your second year at the law school, you can apply for a research assistantship position with a law faculty or staff. There's some other positions that qualify you for the same benefits. So lots of these types of positions are available, and holding that position qualifies you for the resident tuition rate. About 2/3 of our students are non-residents. Usually about 3/4 or more of our students will hold a qualifying research assistantship position. So pretty much everyone who is looking to have a position that will qualify them for the resident tuition rate is able to hold that in their second and third years. And thus pretty much all of our law students are paying maximum 1 year of the non-resident tuition rate. It's about a $19,000 difference between the resident and the non-resident tuition rate. So that's a really strong savings for your second and third year. We do offer scholarships through the admissions process up to full tuition, which is another way that our students can help reduce their financial footprint for law school. Our students are routinely graduating with well under the national average in debt for law school graduates. And that's something that we've been really proud of, that we've been able to help our students keep their financial burden for law school relatively low. And we've seen that play out numerically in the numbers. We're also located in a relatively low-cost area of living. If you come from within the state of Iowa, you would probably think it's expensive because it is one of the higher cost locations within our state. But if you are coming from pretty much anywhere else in the country, you will not consider it expensive, as I did when I first moved here. And so that can help you reduce your total cost of attendance as well. I agree wholeheartedly with what Kim and Kat said. I think when you're considering the total cost of attending law school, you really need to crunch the numbers, figure out where the value for yourself is going to be. And that combination of, reducing your financial footprint and also getting where you want to go from the school that you're attending is really important.
Great, thank you. Now we're going to go out to Irvine in Orange County. And so if we're going to talk about expensive places to live, what is and of course a state school, tell us about how someone who is not a state resident can manage the cost of attendance at Cal Irvine.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I have to, when Kat was talking about cost of living, I was like, just wait to get to Orange County, California. It's about probably similar, maybe a little bit more expensive than New York, than Manhattan is at times. So, being a public school, there is a tuition differential between residents and non-residents. The good thing is that once, during the first year of law school, you can take steps, and we encourage you to take immediate steps if you're going to a public school to establish residency. Once you arrive in California, not once classes begin, once you set foot in the state, because like Iowa, there can be some hurdles involved, but most of our students who take the steps we recommend have no issues getting residency for second and third year of law school. Tuition differential, though, between residents and non-residents is currently about $8,000. So in the grand scheme of law school education, it's not a huge difference, but it's still a difference when you start getting into compounding of interest and time and things like that. But to mitigate a lot of that, I will say first and foremost, like Fordham, we have need-based as well as merit-based scholarshiping. Scholarships are pretty robust for our students. We're fortunate as a young school to have a very supportive university that helps us with making sure that our students can make UCI as affordable as possible. Additionally, to mitigate the housing costs, we guarantee on-campus housing for our students. On-campus housing is apartment style, all within walking distance of the law school. So it's really great. Typically it's, there's the 1-bedroom apartments are typically taken by the upper class students, the true 1-beds, but most students will just share an apartment with another student or two with their own bedrooms, and they're really quite nice. And those are definitely below market rate as far as rents here in Orange County goes, particularly these days with a very robust real estate market going on. So yeah, that's a bit about ours, and I'll throw it back to you, Barbara.
Thank you. And Priscilla, what about Washburn and Kansas? You already told us about the benefit that there is for Texas residents to get in-state tuition. What about residents we might have Oklahoma, Arkansas, the other parts of SWAPLA?
Yeah, so we, I guess I failed to mention that we also offer in-state tuition to Oklahoma students from Missouri, Nebraska, and Colorado. So our neighboring states and of course Texas are all included in that. We also offer, if a student is active military and has orders to be relocated, we will also provide in-state tuition for veterans and anyone that's in active military. And if you don't fall in any of those categories, we are lucky enough to offer in-state tuition to students after living in the state of Kansas for 6 months. So if a student's coming from out of state, let's say Arkansas, and not have in-state tuition, after being in the state of Kansas for 6 months and you register to vote in Kansas, you change your driver's license to Kansas, if you have a vehicle, register it in Kansas, things to prove residency, the university will grant you in-state tuition. So our out-of-state tuition is right under $38,000 a year. In-state tuition is right under $24,000 a year. And so I think our students have, different opportunities to gain in-state residency, if not offered it at admission. It just takes a little bit of time. Trying to think, cost of living, of course, is another factor. Look at that. And there's always those extra costs, and whether it's a want or a need versus a must-have type of thing. So kind of take that into consideration. I know I always wanted to drive a fancy car, and but you can eliminate some of those expenses, by being a little bit more frugal and smart about purchases and things like that. Or the big apartment with 3 bathrooms versus maybe 2 of what you might need. So things like that to take into consideration. And then as far as scholarships go, we are a merit-based. What we have is based on academics, and so we would look at a student's application at admission. That's when we would make an offer for a scholarship that's recommended by the committee. So there's always opportunities outside of those first year scholarships. That's part of my position here, is to go out and find different scholarships to share with our students. Access Lex has a great database available to students. I'm sure every law school here has it on their website somewhere. And it lists scholarships that total over $3 million. And so, I think it would, serve students to go out and take a look at it. You can filter it by, different year. You can filter it by location, things of like that. And so there's some legwork to be done, but at the end of it, there are a lot of different scholarship opportunities for law school students, not just grad programs as well. So Access Lex, again, if thank you, Hannah, for sharing that. And I know on our website, we also have different scholarships listed that have been sent directly to us, or things that I've come across that I like to make available to our students. And again, I'm sure all of the law schools here today have something in place for students as well. So again, it takes a little bit more work on your end, but if it's, a $2,500 or $5,000, $10,000 scholarship, it definitely can make a huge difference when you look at cost of attendance. I will say that Washburn is ranked, I believe, I lost the number, but we're one of the schools with lower amount of debt when students graduate from Washburn. Also something to keep in mind.
Thank you. Glad you mentioned Access Lex, and Anna did put up the
Yes.
link to that. They have fantastic information about financing your legal education. Stan, please talk about Oklahoma in-state, out-of-state tuition and cost of attendance.
Okay. Can I talk about something first that I forgot to mention earlier when I was talking about why Texans leave Texas to come to Oklahoma?
Absolutely. You have my permission as a Texan to do that.
As of this moment, we also happen to have the best football team in Texas.
I have no comment there. I went to SMU, and so, you know, we killed football at our school. So,
well, you know where you got your quarterback from, right?
I think so.
Okay, which was who was our third string quarterback at OU, but we won't try to get too busy about that. I guess one of the things I did want to share too is that I mentioned earlier that about 30% of our students come from Texas and about 35% go back to Texas. I didn't say that right when I said go back. Generally, what happens is we have so many people that come to Oklahoma from Texas to recruit that they will recruit essentially a different group. So generally, the 35% that go back to Texas is not necessarily, in fact, not even close to being the same group that came up. Because what we want to do is make sure that our students have a balanced placement program as they go through the law school at OU. Going back to the point that we're supposed to be talking about, our numbers are, we charge around $22,000 in-state for tuition and about $32,000 out-of-state for tuition. So if you come into Oklahoma from out of state, you can expect to be charged initially about $35,000. One of the things that's important to us is to have diversity in our law school. And one of the ways that you create diversity is by not having everybody in law school being from Oklahoma. So therefore, we will almost give just about anyone that comes to the University of Oklahoma from out of state some type of scholarship to lower the cost of coming to school down from that $32,000 and make it a little bit closer to the $22,000. We also offer merit-based scholarships and we offer need-based scholarships. Every student that applies at the University of Oklahoma, in your application form, we will look at that student individually and make a scholarship decision based upon the initial application. So normally after you get your admittance letter, within a week or two, you're going to get a scholarship letter right behind it to let you know how much it's going to really cost to go there. Some people have already talked about this, but I just want to talk about it a little bit more. Lawyers generally are not math majors. So for the most part, lawyers don't really like to deal with numbers or to sit there and add all this stuff up. I would just share with you something that some of the other people have already said. This is one of the few times as a lawyer, you really need to go through the numbers. Because even though our school might be less expensive, we want you to understand that you need to look at the whole package from all of the schools that are being offered. Because even though a school might be private, it might cost a little bit more. When you look at the entire package and the cost of living and all of that, it might be much more reasonable than what you think. So I just want to say that to the others. Now that I've said that, I just want to let you know that we're also one of the top 15 best bargains as far as the cost of going to law school, as well as the quality of the education that you will get at the University of Oklahoma. We've been on that list for about the last 10 years or so, and we plan on staying there. Our dean wants to position us in such a way that when our students graduate, they can practice the kind of law they want to practice and not be forced to go into a high volume law firm just so they can make enough money to pay their debts off. So again, look at the full package. And I'm not saying that just about OU law, I'm saying that about all the schools. Look at the whole package and look at the numbers and take the time to go through them to make sure that they really say what they're going to say. Oklahoma also happens to be a very low cost of living state. So therefore, in addition to the low cost of tuition, you're going to find it very inexpensive. Take it back, no place is inexpensive. You're going to find it less expensive to live there than you will in a lot of other places. I think I pretty much answered that question. So I'm going to go on so we can talk about some other things.
Yeah, I have one more question that I'm going to ask the whole group. And then I'd encourage anyone who wants to put a question up in the chat to do so. One of the bits of conventional wisdom that we always hear is that you should go to law school in the place that you want to ultimately practice law. And of course, now we have the universal bar exam. And so it would seem that it is opening up much more to be able to go to law school in a variety of different places. And great segue from Stan as well, that you have to consider the kind of job that you're going to get when you come out of law school. So I'd like each one of you to address that. If you are from out of state, and first of all, does your school, are you in a state with the universal bar exam? And if so, what kind of prospects do you see for students who might want to stay in the state where they study or move back to their state of origin after they graduate? Kind of a convoluted question, but I think you all know where I'm coming from. Kimberly's been having some connectivity issues because of the storm, but we're going to go to her first, see how you're doing there. How are you doing, Kim?
Oh, excellent. I'm at home and we live very high up, sunny days. It's a gorgeous view of downtown Boston, but it's also, like I said, it's a nor'easter with very high winds. So that's hence the in and out, but thanks. So for this question, I think a couple things have changed over the last number of years. I've been in law school career services, law school admissions since 1997. And I say this only because I think there's been a shift and then certainly the latest shift over the last few years is the UBE, which is the Uniform Bar Exam. And perhaps maybe Anna, you could put that link up because that is quite interesting and it's making your score portable to other states. So for instance, we are at Boston College Law School. We, as I said, have, I think it's 156 students or different colleges represented. And so it really doesn't matter if you're in state or from out of state. In fact, I think we have about 40% of our students from Massachusetts, all the rest are out of state and global. So, but the other point I wanted to make, and my colleagues can also add to this, so I don't want to take up all the space here, but what I've noticed when I used to be the recruiting manager in our career services office, that there was a big shift, I would say maybe about 20 years ago, whereby these large firms started to merge and have multiple offices around either, West Coast, East Coast, or basically the country. And so what used to be a standalone law firm in Boston then opened up a New York office, and I actually did a reception in one of the venerable law firms in Boston called Ropes and Gray. And I went to one of the first receptions and it was out in California. And it was just stunning to experience that students out on the West Coast had never heard of this law firm, but here it was a mainstay and in Boston. But that has changed over the years. So you have a firm like Holland and Knight with multiple offices that, or other, I don't know, Davis Polk or Winston Strong or Linkletters that are by NALP, NALP.org. NALP standards are considered large law firms. I think that ends up changing things for the students in a good way, because say if they come on campus to our on-campus interviewing program or any school's on-campus interviewing program, they are interviewing for multiple offices. And so those are things that I think can help make students become more portable.
I think that's a excellent point, that everything has become more national, law firms, corporations, everything. So let's hear from Fordham. How is the portability of your degree working out nationwide?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we do have alums in all 50 states and globally. If you want to go to, and like Kim said, we also have a lot of firms that will interview on campus for OCI and early interview week that are interviewing for other cities. And we post that information publicly on our career planning site. So if you wanted to visit our career planning center, they will list all the firms that interviewed on campus over the last 2 years and which cities they interviewed at. So maybe it was New York and Houston, or New York and LA and Chicago, and then you can see what your opportunities are. I'll just talk really quickly about the UBE and New York, because that's something that we recently adopted. And when I was prepping for this panel, I saw that in 2019 alone, 2,000 students sought to transfer their New York UBE to other jurisdictions, and only 800 students sought to transfer them into New York. So it really shows that a lot of students who, do the UBE in New York do have plans to go elsewhere. It's all about, you transfer it by submitting an application. You have to have a certain cut score. For New York, it's 266. I Googled what Texas's was while I was waiting, and it's 270. And so you can definitely transfer. We have some student ambassadors who are recent graduates who both went back to Texas as of recent. But Kim really summed up everything really well with kind of firms diversifying from their small cities. So I will throw it back to Barbara, or I guess Amy.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say thanks for looking up those stats. That's great. That's the first time that I've heard any of that. So different kind of thing in Iowa. Amy, tell us about where students are going to work from there.
Yeah, so Iowa is also a UB state. Even before Iowa adopted the uniform bar exam, the Iowa bar only tested on federal law and had reciprocity with a number of our surrounding states. And it tends to be cheaper to take the Iowa bar than other states' bars. So a lot of our students would take the Iowa bar even if they did not intend to start their careers in Iowa, because they could pay a little bit less to take the bar and then easily transfer their score into other states. Now, even more so with Iowa having the uniform bar exam. We truly have national placement as well. Our students go pretty much everywhere imaginable into all different types of positions. We really pride ourselves on having really strong placement and really working with our students to get individually where they want to go. One thing that I always like to note is, law school is a time of high development, both professionally and personally, where you come in thinking that you're going to do with your law degree and maybe your personal circumstances as well. On the professional side, it's highly likely because I think, we would all say probably at least 2/3 of our students change their minds, if not more, about what area of law they're going to go into or what type of employer they want to go into by the time they graduate. But on the personal side, you might have different considerations when you're leaving law school than you did at the time you came in with. So I think it's really important, if you do have a sense of where you might want your law degree to take you right now, to look at schools that might fit that well, but also just keep in mind that that could change, and especially in the case of professional goals, that is highly likely to change.
Highly likely to change. And I speak from personal experience. I never dreamed I was going to be a corporate attorney when I went to law school. No one else would have guessed it. But that's kind of how it ended up. So we've had this discussion about the uniform bar exam. Now we're going to shift out to Pete, one of the very large states that has never offered reciprocity and does not have the uniform bar. So I think this is going to be a different kind of answer, right?
Exactly. Yeah, Barbie, you took the words out of my mouth. California does not offer the UBE. California taking up what would be the length of the East Coast from like Florida through, I want to say New Jersey, probably has no intention of offering the UBE anytime soon. But the nice part is that if you end up coming to California and you're falling in love with California, you have basically an entire coast upon like which you could practice within. That notwithstanding, a lot of our students who do end up wanting to go back to the states where they wish to practice, if they came from out of state, like certainly, you are certainly qualified to take those bar exams. So if you are looking at a UBE jurisdiction where you'd like to practice, you can qualify for the bar out there. We have, most of our students, I will say, do end up deciding to stay in California. Southern California is our biggest job market. But we have students that end up going back to Minnesota, to Texas, to the East Coast, and successfully beginning their practices. As a young school, our law school alumni network is relatively small and growing, but UCI itself is a gigantic university, and it has a very passionate lawyers alumni group associated with it that has members all across the country. And those people, even though they didn't go to UCI Law, are really passionate about UCI as a brand. Go Anteaters, Zot Zots, and they do their best to serve as our professional network to give mentorship and guidance to students who wish to practice all around the country.
Thank you very much. I think that Priscilla, Kansas as a UBE state, but how many of your students are staying in Kansas, and where are they going back to if they leave there?
Yeah, so from our 2020 graduates, we had 72% of our students stay in the state of Kansas, and 28% went out of state. I believe it was 15 different states that we had students place once they graduated from Washburn. And I think for us, with the third year anywhere, we'll probably see an increase in those numbers as far as going out of state. This is our first year, our first group of students that are doing the third year anywhere. So there's really no data, concrete data, and kind of see what it's going to do just yet. But I would anticipate that we would see an increase of students going to other states rather than staying here in Kansas. I think if there's a specific area in Kansas there's plenty of underserved areas in Kansas, Western Kansas, that there are great opportunities, scholarship opportunities for students to go out and practice in Kansas. But other than that, that third year anywhere, that's the whole idea is going back to where you want to be. And so, yeah.
Thank you. So Stan, we're right at 5 o'clock, so you're going to get the last word. Since you got to be the last one out, you get the final word.
I think we might have lost Stanley.
Did we lose Stanley? I wonder what happened. Okay, well, I guess that means that I get the last word. I don't see any questions from the group, which to me means that we covered everything fantastically well. Thank you so much to our panel members. It's just an amazing group, and thanks to Michelle and to Anna for getting someone. I mean, we really went coast to coast on this one. That's pretty impressive. And I encourage our listeners, utilize, I think it would be great if our listeners out there applied to all 6 of the law schools that we have here, evaluate the kind of offers that they've got, really crunch the numbers and decide from that where it is that you would like to go. And this recording, remember, will be available for everyone on our website as well. So if there are anyone who would like to listen to it, it will be there. And once again, I know that all of the people here are available for those who are on this call. If you want to get more information from any of these law schools, use the contact information that's in the chat. And the law school admissions world is smaller than you think it is. The people who are law school professionals are always happy to talk to potential students. And so don't ever hesitate to reach out and talk to the people you've met on this call today if you're interested in their law schools. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to return the recording off now, and everyone take care and be safe.